Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, we have our friend Danny Whitson. He is a stand-up comedy magician, host of his own podcast. We're going to get to all that in just a moment and let him tell us about himself, too. But please, first, I'm never ready. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteers to share their dreams. You can support my work, direct donations, buy a t-shirt, coffee mug, all that good stuff. Also, 11 currently available published works of historical dream literature, working on simultaneous release for book 12 with the audiobook at the same time. Everything takes forever. That is the housekeeping. And that's enough of that. So back to our guest here. Yeah, this is Danny Whitson, and you also have your own podcast. I forgot to mention it's the Abracadam podcast. So if you would, I'd like people to say a few words about themselves because I know nothing. Go ahead.
Well, hey, first of all, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome. My name's Danny Whitson. I'm a stand-up comedy magician from Knoxville, Tennessee. Been performing for 20 years now, so I'm old, and pretty much travel all over the country, selling them smiles, as I like to say it. And also, host of the Abracadam podcast, which can be heard on pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Very cool. And this will be in the description below as well. We've got DannyWhitsonMagic.com. That's Whitson, WHITSON, DannyWhitsonMagic.com. And they can book you or find all kinds of good stuff on your website. I wanted to make sure, again, in the description below, and we'll mention it again at the end. Here's talk about funny, haha, and funny synchronicity. So I'm listening to another podcast today because I do stuff and bop around. And it was mentioned that these people used to go and mess with each other at the gym when they were weightlifting. And they would try and get their friends to crack up because they would drop the weight. And that's a function of when we go into laughter, our muscle tension we lose control of it and we just drop things. This is involuntary kind of weakness. And the point that guy made was that you can't be physically aggressive. You can't fight with someone if you are laughing. So it's not just psychologically opposite, it's physiologically opposite. So what's the solution to world peace? We got to make everybody laugh all the time.
Yeah. You make people laugh and they forget about all the other BS that is happening in their life. That's a lot of things like I like to do with my show is when you come to see my show, my goal is to make you forget about that bad day you may have had or whatever you're worrying about. Let's just drop all that and smile and have a good time.
Yeah. And it is, I think, a fantastic public service. It's necessary in the world. It's necessary for our good health to enjoy things, to have genuine moments of enjoyment, to forget our problems and just laugh because there's lots of good things to laugh about. And if we lose that capacity, it's a very dark place to be in. That's where depressed people are is they can't find the joy, the humor in life anymore. Yeah. It's hidden from them, stolen from them. But we're not going to dark places like that on this show, unless the dream takes us there, which I'm trying to get better at this, getting us give it enough time for the guests to feel like I've let them have an introduction because I was horrible at that. Then I spent too much time on it. Now I'm trying to get us into the dream, which is what hopefully people are here to do. So as per my usual process, Danny has brought a dream. I'm going to shut up and listen, take my notes, and we're going to see if we can make sense of it together. So I'm ready when you are.
All right. Well, first of all, I don't usually share my dreams. I don't remember my dreams most of the time, by the way.
Me too.
I wake up and I'm like, and if it ever was a good dream, it's like, oh God. And then I just forget it. But This was a really weird, and it's not a long dream. It was not a long dream at all. It's a very short dream, but it was just kind of awkward that I dreamt it. Probably, I want to say maybe 3-4 years back, there was a good friend of mine that we kind of had a falling out, and which is always awkward to talk about anytime you have any falling out with somebody, but I had known him for quite a long time and we had a little falling out. We haven't spoken since, and I hadn't thought of the guy at all. And but anyways, I have this dream where I'm laying, apparently in my dream, I'm trying to sleep and I keep hearing a noise going on in my room, something annoying me. And then all of a sudden I'm like waylaid with like a Nerf football just bounces off my head. And I open my eyes completely, you know, and there he is, my buddy, standing in my bedroom. And he looks at me just like with a snicker on his face, you know, his little smile, and kind of waves at me and then walks out the room. And I was thinking, I'm like, you know, what the hell's he doing here? What is he doing here? You know? But it was almost like a friendly gesture that you would kind of riff at your buddy about, you know, like, I'm trying to take a nap and, you know, I can't sleep because he's, you know, being an idiot, you know what I mean? And I woke up and I was like, why did I think about him? You know, I mean, I haven't thought about this guy in a while. And, you know, like I said, we didn't end on good terms. And it was, I don't know, it was just kind of an odd dream. You know, I literally thought, is something going on with him? Should I reach out and check with this guy to see if he's okay? You know, what's happening, you know? But yeah, that was it. That's kind of the dream. And like I said it's not a real long dream, but it did kind of have me puzzled. And it's one that I absolutely remembered that stuck in my head. And I was just like, you know, is the universe trying to tell me something here?
Right. Yeah. And I would say, well, yes and no, but definitely yes. We're going to make sense of it in some satisfactory way. But you did mention the idea of this is where I go to the no side of things. I don't tend to look at the validity necessarily of supernatural stuff. I wouldn't say there's ghosts or spirits or God or gods communicating these things to us, except in a metaphysical way. It is our experience talking to us in a way that is less filtered. So in some ways it is, but the idea of reaching out to, you know, like, am I getting a message that I need to reconnect with this person? Maybe that's what you're telling yourself. But do I think someone's warning you something bad's going to happen to them? You might have that concern bubbling up in the dark of night, or it may not necessarily be related to that at all. And that's what my process is meant to kind of tease out. Like, what are this? You start with something and you've got images, but you don't have it attached to anything concrete. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a mystery that needs solving. Of course, it's kind of the bare bones of it. But I was going somewhere with that. Brain fart. But it's, yeah, I focus on, and not to, as I always say, not to finger wag at anyone that believes in the supernatural stuff. That's as good an explanation as any in some sense, because that is the experience we have. It feels bizarre and mysterious, and there's something about that experience that makes us want to know more. So if that's what's motivating you to look at these things harder, that motivation serves as well as any other.
You know, the supernatural thing sometimes not. So you focus mainly on, you know, the educational side of stuff, correct?
Sure. Yes. Like psychological. That's my background. 20 years in psychology. So I've been thinking about a lot of these things for a while. Go ahead.
I had a dream interpreter one time. I had a dream one time that I was trapped inside of a vibrating taco.
Okay.
And I told that to like this mystic type person. And they gave me this big, crazy explanation. But what I didn't tell her is that when I woke up, I realized I was sleeping on the remote control for my adjustable bed. So I was, you know.
That is something to take into consideration. Are you having these, the last gal I talked to, the episode just went up, by the time people watch this last week, she had an experience of coming in and out of consciousness during the same dream, in a way. Like she was aware of being awake, but then felt like she was awake in her dream, in this blurred distinction of time. And there were physical sensations of her body from having worked in the garden that were feeding into her discomfort and interrupting her sleep. And there's a whole range of physical, environmental causes, internal sensations and external experiences that can contribute to informing the dream. But then what the dream does with that material is unique to everybody. It's not always going to be the same, and it may or may not apply, but yeah.
So, but you said, like, so you're not on the supernatural side of things, because I mean, really with dreaming, there's still like a lot of unknowns. like why necessarily. I mean, people have their theories about why we dream, but no one is 100% certain.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going with what makes sense to me, being very rational. I call myself a credulous skeptic. I'm willing to believe anything. My bar for proof is really damn high. So I would love, and I've had a lifelong fascination with ESP, telepathy, telekinesis, all these kind of what if humans are capable of more. We just haven't been able to prove it yet. It seems like it might be possible, and I have no reason to believe we couldn't prove it someday. But my focus is on what can I make sense of in a way that doesn't rely on logical leaps into, well, it was obviously a ghost. Oh, was it? Okay, well, how do we prove that? I don't know.
I mean, I consider myself a rationalist, and I will say this though, okay? Yeah. Because and for your listeners, people who watch this, being a magician, most magicians don't believe in anything fun. I mean, if Houdini had a big reputation of disliking mediums and trying to disprove a lot of stuff like that.
It's a big history of that, yeah.
There's a big history there. And I will say this, I'm very familiar how to deceive people. I'm very familiar how a lot of the processes work. But as I've gotten a little older, I'm not that old, but I'm getting older. I'm actually a lot more open-minded, and I consider myself a spiritual person. I do believe people do have psychic abilities. I think everyone has an ability. I mean, hell, we've all got that one weird aunt. You know what I mean? You're like, how did you know that? And also on the same side is the supernatural things like with ghosts, and I'm a fan. You can check on my podcast. I have people all the time on about that. But no, I do believe in those kind of stuff. So, and I consider myself a rationalist because I think it's a rational thought.
I do not exclude it. Yeah. And this is funny coming from a guy who calls himself a wizard. It's partly ironic. What I'm doing, it can feel like wizardry, any sufficiently advanced technology, or throughout the history of humankind, so many things we don't understand. And then we figured it out later, and it seemed like magic at the time. And even things today, just not understanding something. I don't know how, honestly, my mechanic fixes my clutch. That's magic to me. It is knowledge beyond my ability. Maybe I could train myself to do it. You want to get down, Boo-Boo? Train myself to do it, but right now it's magical to me.
It is magic. But this is the thing, okay? First of all, a wizard, a magician, there we go, man. This was meant to be.
This really was. I did not actually put those two together, but of course, why wouldn't it?
If you look at just quantum physics, look at quantum physics. That's magic, bro. I mean, that's magic. You know what I mean? But a lot of things, just because you don't understand it, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real. Or So a lot of things tie into that. And, back on the supernatural side of with dreams, you're the expert, the long history
Working
of
on
the
it.
Supernatural connection with dreams,
for sure.
So to me, it's always kind of crazy, things that, a lot of things they say you can't do this in a dream, or you can't, can't punch somebody. Is that true? You can't I don't know.
I've heard a lot of those suppositions, and then someone will come along and saying, "Oh, I did that." Okay. One thing we don't know for sure is it seems to be a consistent phenomenon that people do not experience have a death experience in a dream, so to speak. Now, watch.
I don't say that would be possible.
Someone's going to come out of the woodwork and say, "It happened to me." A lot of people will have the experience of being a spectator, say, at their own funeral. That's kind of a different category of things. It's observing your imagination of how people would react to your death and what it would be like to see the aftermath of you having left that circle of friends behind, and how your family and how they respond. But falling off a cliff and you wake up before you hit the ground, we very often startle ourselves. Out of sleep.
Those are the worst. Now, the whole funeral thing, I actually got a fantasy of that, except I want to be in a gorilla costume and come in, and people think it's me in the coffin, but I'm really dressed as a gorilla at my own funeral.
Riding through on a unicycle, juggling.
You're like, Danny knew some weird people.
I know.
You know, there's a gorilla. We got a wizard. We got all kinds of folks here.
I've had a fantasy too of having a Viking funeral where they put me on the stacked pile of wood and light me up. You know, that actually, but then I wouldn't be able to be there to enjoy it. So I don't know. That's okay. I've also thought of donating my body to that Body Works. You ever heard of those that they plasticize the body and preserve it, and then they just put you on
they
display.
Grow a tree out of you, right? Don't they grow like a tree?
They took the intestine and stretched it out to its full like 22 something foot length and put it on the wall. And it's like, are you kidding me? That's all coiled up in there. That's what it takes to digest food, is running it through this tube where it breaks down and absorbs. And human body.
Now you're magical. Art.
What's that?
I said they turn you into art.
Yes. Body Works art is a very artistic display. Ever since I saw it 15 or something years ago, I'm like, I should donate myself to science. Like, and again, being that rational, credulous skeptic, maybe there's an afterlife. I don't think it's attached to our physical form in any way. Whatever this is, yeah, that's where I would go with that. But that's why I don't finger wag at people either who have a more metaphysical, spiritual, magical understanding of the world. Is that is very often our experience of what's happening to us, is this inspiration and awe. And there's nothing wrong with that. Even if I take it in a scientific direction, it's still the same experience. We're just understanding, interpreting it differently. As long as there's credible evidence, I'm on board. And I hope study continues for all that kind of stuff. Man, I'd love to develop psychic powers if I could. Damn right, I want to fly.
Oh yeah. Well, I fake it on stage, but I'm telling you, the results, people love it. So.
Oh, for sure. We all want to believe in magic too. That's that there's really something supernatural going on. But as you said before, the vibrating strings of quantum mechanics in the universe, and the idea that we're all held together by these invisible bonds we still haven't identified. I mean, the idea of atoms, that's as far down as we can go, and then quarks, and what's below that? What's holding those together? Nobody knows.
And I tell people all the time, and I mean, a lot of times it's easy to we can be completely honest. If you look out into space right now, of course, we have labels for a lot of things that we have seen and studied from our little rock. Mm-hmm. But if you want to know the absolute truth, is we don't know caca. We don't know nothing. When you look out there, we really don't know. I mean, just if you look at space, you're like, my God, look at that. That is nuts. Yep. So that's why, I mean, you got to have an open mind. You absolutely have to have an open mind, because you don't know crap. You don't know anything.
That's definitely the direction I go with it as well. It hasn't been proven yet. Let's see. Let's find out. But speaking of seeing and finding out, so we had your dream experience, and it was 3 to 4 years ago. You said you had that falling out with a friend, but this dream itself was recent?
Yeah.
Within the past week or two, or a month ago? Yeah.
I would say probably about a month and a half ago. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Just kind of, let's say like, what is that? Like 60 days? No, 40, 45 days ish. I don't do calculations, just give myself a reference point. And the first experience you had a memory of in the dream was waking up in bed? Yeah, I was asleep in my bed, yeah. Now, it wasn't the bouncing the football off the head that woke you up. There was an experience of waking up before that happened? Yeah. Okay. Now that you're kind of putting yourself back in that moment, what was was it your room, identifiably, or was it some other place? Yes, it was my bedroom. So this is where my brain goes with that stuff. So this wasn't, there's a lot of, say, comedians and magicians that are road heavy. They go everywhere, and you may spend a lot of time at home. You may travel. You were not waking up in a strange place. You were not waking up in a hotel. That would also be a common experience too. You probably stayed in 100 hotels. Yeah. So waking up at home, it's what does that mean? Your brain is conceptualizing this experience of being at home. It wants you to say, okay, this experience is related to not just being at home, being in your room, not just in your room, in bed, not just in bed, waking up from having been asleep. So what does that mean? I don't know. We haven't got there yet, but this is you're watching that's what these whole videos are. Watch my process live as it happens. But that also kind of primes your pump to start saying, well, what is it about home? What is it about sleeping in my own bed? What is it about not being, and that's why I asked these clarifying questions, not being woken up by the friend, but having the experience of awakening, so to speak, waking up, coming to consciousness prior to the interaction. There's something in the sequence of events too that no need for answers, just postulate, percolate in your own mind, as they say. Any sense of what might have awakened you?
I think it was I heard a noise in the room.
Oh, there was you did say an annoying noise, and I wasn't sure if that, now you're kind of having the experience of, it seems like that annoying noise may have alerted you, grabbed your attention. And may have actually served as the reason you awoke. So yeah, that's interesting too. I start looking at that like, what is it to, and it's interesting too. So it was an annoying noise. It was an unpleasant attention grabber that got you. It wasn't, oh, I heard harp music and that woke me up. It was so there's something about getting your attention in an unpleasant way that maybe causes annoyance and brings you into conscious awareness of some present situation. And did you ever identify the noise, or thinking back on it now, what did you have an awareness of what type of noise it was? You know, high pitch, low pitch, buzzing, humming, clacking? Yeah.
It just sounded like some moving stuff around in the bedroom, you know, something, well, kind of just sound like someone moving around in my room, you know, and I'm like, well, what's going on here?
Okay. So you've got in your perhaps most personal of spaces, the place where you feel comfortable enough to relax, not only relax, but safe enough to lose consciousness. Now there's this intrusion in that very personal space, and it's an annoying noise, and it's movement. It's a disruption. I was going somewhere else with that. Yeah, and what do you relate that to the annoyance factor, that it was in your space? Where's the annoyance come from, would you say, at hearing the noise, now that you're kind of thinking about it?
You mean, well, yeah, it was the noise that was annoying me. It just kind of like, you know, who's doing that, you know, kind of thing.
Do you remember kind of thinking that to yourself at the time of like, who is doing that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So it was actually kind of an awareness of movement in the room. And that it was a disruptive noise. You were sleeping, you were comfortable, you were having your lovely rest, and someone comes along, hustle and bustle, you're making noise. I can't sleep. This is disturbing, disrupting. And that the annoyance would come from that. And you're like, okay, what is responsible for this? And you're looking at that. And then, do you have an awareness of having opened your eyes at that time and looked around the room, or that is when that happened, like sequentially? I'm awake, I hear a noise, then you open your eyes and you see something?
Yes. Yeah, I open my eyes. There's, what's that noise? And then there I saw my buddy.
And if you could give me a little bit of a mental picture of the room, like if you can see the room behind me, I've got my beds over there. So if I'm laying in bed, I would be looking at my computer, on this side a shelf, on that side some tables, you know. What did you see from your vantage point, and where was he positioned in the room?
He was right next to the closet and the bedroom door. So, and like I said, he opened my eyes and I saw him standing there. He had this big grin on his face, and then that's when he threw the Nerf football, you know, bonked me on the head with it, and then he, you know, smiled and left the room.
Okay. Was he dressed in any particular way?
He had a t-shirt and looks like he had t-shirt and like basketball shorts on because we would play basketball a lot back in the day when we were kids.
Okay. Very much iconic of him in a way that immediately reminded you of, yeah, that's kind of how we interacted or spent time together, or something we enjoyed doing together since we were kids. And then up until the time that you guys had fallen out, was he were you still active, still shoot some hoops together, or was that just a distant memory?
Yeah, that was just a distant memory. No, not at all.
Okay. So that is a very interesting connection. If that was something you guys did every Saturday throughout your life, and then suddenly it stops, of course you would see him, because the last time you saw him, you were probably playing basketball, or the time before that. But this is taking you back to imagine that connection, or imagine having a connection to someone represented by this person that goes back that far, that specifically referenced you've known them since you were both kids. There's a very lifelong element to that idea, and a throwback to remember what it was like at that time long ago, when that was a very core element of your friendships, kind of directing you time-wise to think back to that moment in a way by putting them in the basketball gear. Yeah, it could have been anything. I'm glad I asked too, because a lot of people just say, I don't know. I don't know what he was looking like. In that case, the absence of something could mean something, or it just means it's not important. You just knew it was him. You couldn't even tell me what he looked like, other than he looked like my friend, because he was. And that's its own kind of unique iconography. What is your connection with Nerf football? I don't. Do you have kids? Do you toss a Nerf football with them, or?
I mean, I do, but none of them are into sports. It's I mean, I like sports, but I don't know what the connection was. It was kind of weird.
Fair enough. Man. Yeah, because that's also its own unique kind of symbol. So it is sports related, and it is safe. So someone who's going to playfully bounce something off your head is not throwing a cannonball. They're going to throw Nerf. Nerf is synonymous with it's probably not going to kill you.
Good thing we didn't bowl.
Right, for sure. Oh, that's its own kind of, yeah, that'd be fun. So there's a lot of different ways to go with that too. And again, I'm just kind of trying to prime the pump for you a little bit, in terms of it could be as simple as, well, this is something he would do. It's consistent with his character. So, of course, it has to be a Nerf ball. So the brain says, let's make this make sense from that angle. It can also be something else. And it is interesting that, so I ask about the kids, and you say they're not into sports, even though you are. So there's maybe something there as well, with a desire of connection or sharing interests with your kids. Something to think about. Not saying that's the only answer. I just rattle doorknobs and see what comes out of it. When you think of it from that angle, does the Nerf ball and the childhood fun with your friend feel relevant to your relationship with your kids, or wrong direction?
I mean, now I think I do worry a lot about making sure I spend enough time with my kids, so that is something that I stress and worry about. I do worry about that a lot. Yes, I do. And trying to find something, a connection there to spend time with them, something that we can both bond. So yeah, I do. That's something I worry about quite a bit, actually.
Okay. That would be a very natural, say, theme to show up in some element in the dream. And so even if we say, we're not going to say, oh, dream solved, that's the whole thing is about, your connection with your kids and have a nice day, all that good stuff. But if we say, okay, that's an element of something that does have you place a high value in it. It's a high priority in life, enough that you spend time actively thinking about how to make it happen. That might also express itself as kind of a picture within a picture, nested inside of a Russian doll. There's so many layers to all this kind of stuff. But again, I just kind of priming the pump on that one, and trying to get a lot of these different views of it in your own mind. Because that's part of what, because I can't get in there myself. I have to have you show me the landscape. Is the playful grin and bouncing a football off your head, that is also consistent with your friend's personality? This was not a trait of someone else you put onto him.
No, yeah, that's something that he would totally do.
So that's very, not just iconic of someone, but definitely related to that specific person. Because sometimes we'll get in dreams what do they call it? There's a lot of different condensation, they've called it in the past. It's probably a very Freudian word. But we'll say it was my, say, wife's face, but she was speaking my mother's words. That kind of condensation puts them together. Okay, well, now we start talking about, okay, what traits of your mother might your wife be displaying? Do you want her to display more, or is that causing a problem in your relationships? We tease that apart in that way. But when it's very consistent, it's honing in that reference on, no, look at this guy, this specific guy, and the way he generally would behave, all consistent. Anything unusual about him now that you've kind of started to think about seeing his image next to the bedside? Anything stand out of like, okay, that's not right, or his hair was different, or he walked through the wall on his way out, you know?
I mean, other than the fact that I think the version that I saw of him wasn't the current version. It was probably more of the teenage version of him.
That's good to know. So it's really, really focusing your mind on, now think of your relationship with this specific person at that time when you were younger, as represented by an image of him from that time, behaving as he normally would, really, really focusing in on that concept. That's good. And he was by the, you said kind of between the closet and the bedroom door.
Yes.
Directly halfway between, or closer to one than the other?
Probably closer to the door. Probably closer to just stepping in, to do that, and then leaving.
Do you remember if the door was open or closed?
Yes, it was open.
Open door. And that's interesting iconography too. So it can mean something personal, it can mean something universal. We've got doorways being entrance points, being portals to moving from one space to another. They can also represent barriers, but this one was open. So you did not imagine in your mind that you had to close the door and that he had to violate that space. In your mind, there's more like the door was open anyway. There was more of an invitation to actually come in and kind of disturb you in that sense. You could have had it locked and he broke in, and that would mean something completely different. And I was wondering about that because so that placed him in the environment, and it might have meant something if it looked like he had jumped out of the closet and beamed you, like he was hiding. Maybe that meant something else. But he just walked in through the open door, did his thing, playfully teased you, and then left. Any strong remembrance of how he left or where you thought he might be going? Or
it was a sense that when he did that, I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And he kind of grinned, and like he walks down the, when he walked out, he walked just casually down the hallway, like he wasn't in a hurry to get anywhere, like he was just going back in, the other room,
Okay. And that was the other thing that you mentioned, a feeling of annoyance at the disruption. And then I was going to ask you how you felt about identifying, how did you feel when you saw it was him, and then as a response to his behavior as well. And you mentioned kind of surprise, or at least that curiosity of what is going on here.
I mean, at first it was the surprise and what's going on. And then when he hit me with the Nerf football, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. All right. I know you're screwing off here, kind of a thing, so it's almost like my guard was up and then my guard went down after being hit with the Nerf ball.
Interesting. So that I'm trying to make sense of that too. Where does that take my mind? It's an interesting way to phrase it. My guard was up before he engaged, before he did something where, and that seems contradicting in my mind, and maybe it's just in my mind, but the idea that after I get hit with a Nerf ball, I'd be worried he's going to throw another. My guard would go up, but yours actually reversed. You were maybe suspicious at first, and then once you saw, so if you're suspicious of someone's motives, then they show you what those motives are. You can relax because now you know what you're dealing with. There's something in there of like, okay, that's what he came to do. It was harmless. He's being playful. And you had an interesting look on your face too when you were describing that, like, oh, okay. And it was almost like not a grudging, but a being tolerant of someone's shenanigans that are, do you know what I'm trying to say? How would you describe it better?
Well, I mean, it's just like, when he did it was almost like, okay, this is, he's messing around, playing around, and, like we used to do with each other back in the day, so it was, I didn't think about any issues, anything that was going on between us at the time or anything. Just, oh, okay, he's screwing off. All right, he's playing around.
And it wasn't until after you woke up and realized, oh, I was dreaming about that friend I haven't seen in a while. Then it came rushing back of, oh, I miss him, or I wish things had gone differently. And that's the next thing I was going to ask is, what, beyond just identifying who it was and having some of that history come rushing back, what were your thoughts on waking up in terms of immediately looking back on the dream? Any recollection of that? Like the first thought that came to mind type of thing? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just remember I was like, why in the world did I think about him? What's because I mean, I don't normally think about the guy, and I don't normally, I've moved past, the situation, from back then. So, I mean, it's not something that I really think about. That's why I was like, wow, that came out of left field.
Out of nowhere,
really, out of nowhere, thinking about this guy. So, I was just trying to figure that out. I was like, this is really odd. And then that's whenever, the supernatural part of the discussion is, something wrong? Do I need to call him? I mean, right? Even though we're not technically, we're not friends anymore, but I don't want any harm on the guy. I wish the guy the best, and I'm like, is this something I need to, reach out to him and just, let him know, I hope he's doing okay or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And that would be, I mean, if it's not too personal, did you end up taking any action as a result of the dream? I mean,
I didn't. Now we do have a mutual that I talk to, and I'll slip in, hey, how's so-and-so doing okay? All right, good deal. I did do that.
Okay.
I did do, a little casual while I was having a conversation. Hey, so-and-so's doing all right. Okay, good deal. All right.
Okay.
Good.
Fair enough. Yeah. So it didn't drive you driven to reconnect and, I got to reach out. I'm so, regretful or whatever, but you didn't do nothing. So there was enough motivation there to say, hey, I dreamed about him. How's he doing? And there's a very superficial.
I didn't tell him I dreamed.
You did tell him, or you did not?
I didn't tell our mutual. I just kind of like, hey, how's he doing? Okay, cool.
Casually now I'm drop good. It. Yeah. I was just going to say that's you needed to satisfy your own curiosity that he was okay, at least. Because, as you were saying, you don't wish harm on him.
As long as, it wasn't something like big giant news, this guy should know, Now granted, if dude's toes fell off, he may not have told anybody. So, but as long as it's not something crazy, something, big that this guy would have known. So
he's not in the hospital from a car crash.
Exactly.
He's not getting a divorce or whatever. I mean, it's no big news.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, I mean, the very superficial level analysis would be, you hadn't thought about your friend in a while. You wondered, is he okay? And so you had this dream saying, I remember when we got along, and I miss that, and I hope he's okay. And so we could say that's the end all be all of it. And it's a very contained little box, and it gave you enough motivation to say, I'm going to at least call and find out. even if we took that as the sum total of it, which may or may not be, there's still why that dream about that guy at that time. What even brought that back to mind? And that's usually related to the circumstances that you got going on. So before we go too far, and I did too many speculations, going through what I call the deep dive, we explain it again. We try and go step by step, try and get a little bit more of the word pictures going on. Did anything suddenly occur to you? Any connections put together? Any whoa moments? Anything?
I mean, what with him?
Just during me talking back and throwing out some ideas and putting little bugs in your ear.
I'll be honest with the one thing that when you brought up me worrying about bonding with my children, that was a a light went off there, because like I said, there's something there that connects, that I constantly trying to figure out a way to relate with my kids, to have that relationship, because that is very important to me. So sure. That is something I think about. So that was definitely a whoa moment in your description.
Yeah. And there may have been some recent experience, either you'd made an attempt to connect in a way that failed, or you are feeling guilty because you didn't obsess. I say that on purpose, but obsess enough about how to make a connection. And this free floating anxiety. Am I working hard enough? How do I know if I'm working hard enough? How do I know if I'm succeeding?
And also, being an entertainer, you're on the road so much and you're away from your kids. So there's that worry that I carry around with me. And there's a sense of guilt and some things. So
for sure. And did this dream occur to you while you were on the road recently, or was it at home?
No, this was at home though. This is the dream that I had at home.
Gotcha. And either one could make sense. You are absent, you're on the road, you have this dream. I'm not with my kids. But this was even maybe another level, or a different kind of experience of, I'm even home now, and I'm still kind of having this concern. And where I'm going with all this to kind of try and bring it together is, there's perhaps a reason. Well, there's always a reason, even if we don't know what it is, but perhaps a reason that relationship with that friend that you had since you were kids fell apart. And it could be any number of reasons, and you don't have to get too specific. It's all kind of personal business. This is all personal business, but there may have been a connection there as well of you looking at, how do I make sure that mistake, that circumstance doesn't happen in a way that impacts my relationship with my kids? I don't want to fall out of touch with them. I don't want to have a falling out with my kids because I wasn't engaged with them enough, right? Looking at it, putting all those pieces together, does something come to mind?
Oh yeah. I mean, I can, as far as, I've had, one son move far away. So, that's, there's a big distance now separating us. So I worry about, maintaining a relationship with him. And then, so, there's a few things definitely that kind of ties into that I can see, especially when it comes to the worrisome of that. And, you, like I said, being away also, you think back, did I, was I way too much back then? Am I way too much now? So
yeah, you get those cats in the cradle tears.
Absolutely.
We'll get together then.
Yes, you do, man. That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Oh, it is. And that's really tough too, because it's like, you got to make a living and you can't take them with you all the time, and you got to trust that they're going to be okay. That's a very common human experience. It's something we can all relate to. I mean, even people that don't have kids. When I go on vacation for a weekend, I leave my cats at home. Are they okay? Am I ignoring them? It's not the same. Well, I'm not one of those people. My fur babies are the same as your kids, but at least I get it. It's common to the human experience. Yeah.
Well, and this is something that, I'm in my 40s, and, of course, I think it's the thing that I enjoy about aging. This is something that I'm grasping and I'm enjoying about it, is your way of thinking changes. and because I definitely don't think the way I did when I was in my 20s. I don't think the same way I did when I was in my 30s. And a lot of things in life that you would want, well, I wanted when I was younger. Now it's toned down a lot, and you kind of, you figure out like, hey, no one's going to live forever. The storybook eventually ends. So for everybody, not just me, but for everybody. And, let's make things simple and maintain relationships with people that we can, and keep your circle, your family and friends, and love them as much as possible, and not trying to sap it up here, but that's really my way of thinking now. And because one day I'm going to be old, and hopefully I'm going to be old one day. So like growing old is not a curse, it's an accomplishment. And I, like I said, I've thought about that a lot. And when I look at my children, I'm like, I want to create as many memories as I possibly can, because also being an entertainer, and I think all entertainers deal with this too, is because you have to sell yourself so much. It almost seems like you've got your own head up your ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really, I don't, and most entertainers actually, can't stand themselves. It's but you have to focus on selling yourself so much, you worry if you're neglecting the people that you love.
For sure. Yeah, that's where I was coming around to with this particular reference to that particular person, the nature of the relationship you had. And if we, in a way, interweave or layer that on top of this genuine, reasonable concern. Am I connected enough? Am I doing everything I can to stay connected with my kids, make memories, make the most of my time? It seems like your mind wanted you to take a second look or reanalyze. I think there's some lesson, is what I'm trying to say. Or at least you have the concept of something to be gained through an understanding to be gained in looking at that person and the nature of the relationship you had with them in the context of it having dissolved for one reason or another. Something to pull out that you think might be useful in satisfying that broader goal of staying connected with your kids. When you think of it that way, is there some kind of lesson you think did anything pop to mind in terms of what can I take away from this? What can I do differently?
Well, I mean, to me is I more balance, more balance and balance out, my time with them. And, that's the main thing that, I'm kind of seeing there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And I, and there's also the factor of, intrusive thoughts in a way. So your brain's also saying, you're recognizing the phenomenon itself as you're in this restful state, and this idea bounces itself off your head in a way that disrupted your peace and quiet, but also led you to this other conceptual understanding. So it's almost like it's showing you a microcosm of maybe a life process, the way you respond to certain things. Dreams are very often consistent with our character, so to speak. It's like it shows us who we really are, and not in like a you don't understand yourself, let me show you the hidden thing, but it's we are responding to what we see honestly based on how we feel and what it would really what would really happen if we were in that circumstance. Sometimes that's not universal. I'm really struggling for words today. I think I burned my brain on building things. All my brain power went out between like 9 a.m. and 1 o'clock this afternoon. Well, I don't know. All that word jumble I just threw at you. Is that bring anything to mind?
Well, no, definitely intrusive thoughts. That's definitely, barging inside my head, absolutely barging in. And, one of my goals for this year was to be more balanced, have a balanced life. Last year, professionally, was a fantastic year for me, believe it or not. A lot of people, 2021 was a horrible year for a lot of people still, but professionally, it was fantastic for me. Physically and mentally, it was rough.
Oh, yeah. So you think you want to work more, and then you do. Oh boy.
yeah. And but I didn't have enough balance for my mental health and my physical health. And I wanted to, to try to take care of myself better in that ways. And then also, like I said, maintaining relationship with my kids and balancing that out as well. So, sure. So I don't know. Maybe that was its way of, hey, don't forget about your kids, idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
or that's part of it too. I was going in that direction a little bit of like, this is naturally something that's on your mind. So not surprised you're going to dream about it. But also something, and I don't want you to feel on the spot to give me a good answer, but this is where I would hope to be beneficial, is to say, if you meditate on that, could take another month, month and a half to have another epiphany on this, because sometimes you got to just work it through and try different pieces of the puzzle. But it feels like there's something, that particular dream in that shape and form and experience wanted to tell you about what was on your mind anyways. Like, how am I looking at this? And what if I look at this angle? What can I learn from that experience and apply it to my broader goal of the balance, the work-life balance, and the connection with the kids, but also the balance of, you need your own mental health time, which could be, I just need to go take a nap and I would like to be undisturbed. And then to have the intrusive thoughts bouncing off your head in your sleep, that can also be an element to it. So if you were to carry that forward from our experience talking together of like, what is it about that experience I could apply to my goals now? There's some connection in there that I haven't seen yet, but you get that gut sense that it's there. You just haven't quite teased it out yet. So yeah, that's what I would say in terms of trying to be beneficial to you. Like, what can we do?
And I can definitely see that now. That's something I had no clue at all before when I first told you this, or even after the dream.
Yeah.
But I can totally connect that, because it is something that I carry around and worry about a lot, especially here lately. And now, a lot of it makes sense to me. I'm not the dream interpreter, but especially thinking of somebody who I had a falling out with, and it's something that I definitely don't want to have with my kids. Yeah. Something that I need to make a stronger. I feel like, I need to definitely make sure that the balance of my life, I need to include them in doing that. So I can totally see the connection.
Yeah. And I would never say I'm the expert. Trust me, this is the answer and we're done. So there may be more to learn from it. You could talk to different people, give someone else the same dream and say, what do you make of this? Where would you go with these ideas? Because I just put out I think it's a recent episode, or it'll be out last week at this point. I always forget. The focus of it was on separating it was a clear show clip, separating the assumptions of the analyst in a psychological sense from the true intentions, motivations, understanding of the patient. Because you always got two people in therapy, so to speak. You got the client who's in therapy, but you've got the therapist. He is there in the therapy as well, and that's another person. There's always two people there. So you've got you stick to your ethics and check your assumptions. And this is what I do with folks too, is like, if I just start babbling a bunch of nonsense and you're like, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me, well, then I'm completely wrong. But if you get okay, that kind of makes sense, then I think we know we're onto something. And that's usually what I look for is that feedback of, that actually.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, seriously, that makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. I'm not just saying it because I'm a guest on here. It really makes
I appreciate I paid him to say this. But still. So, yeah, if that's kind of a satisfying look at that experience and enough of an understanding to at least have something to say, work on making use of as you go forward. Hey, something comes of it, it doesn't, you let it percolate. Sometimes you get coffee. Sometimes you forgot to put the coffee in. You're just cleaning the pot. That's fine too. then you did mention that you had another dream that we would maybe just kind of look at from your childhood for fun.
Yeah, this is a weird one. Well, it's kind of weird. I don't know how weird. It's kind of weird now, Benjamin.
Right?
It's weird now, and I'm going to tell you why it's weird.
Fair enough.
Okay, and you'll see why it's weird now. All right, I don't even know how old I was. Okay, I have no clue, but I know I was super young, like younger than 6 years old, maybe 5 years old when I had this dream. And I remember being in my mother's bedroom. My mom was passed out on the bed, and I was laying next to her. And I remember hearing a lot of ruckus going on in the kitchen. Okay, and I remember getting up, and I walked into the kitchen, and we had this old china hutch, this old china cabinet thing in our kitchen when I was a kid, and there was a man standing there had a drawer open, and he was rummaging through this drawer of the china cabinet, and I thought it was my dad. And so I was like tugging on his pants, trying to get him to look down at me, and he turns around, and I swear to God, I'm not making this up. This is why it's so weird now. He turns around, and he actually has a mask, like a COVID-19 mask on his face.
Wow.
Okay. And it scared the hell out of me. It wasn't my dad. I don't know who the hell it was, but I remember running like hell back into the bed, hopping in the bed with mom, and that was it. And I remember waking up the next day and accusing my dad, "Dad, someone was in the house. That was you. You had a mask on, blah, 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 blah." And of course they laughed, and but it was a dream. It definitely was a dream, but it was just so, I don't know. I had to tell it, especially with the correlation with the whole masks thing. It was definitely a mask.
That is unusual. That's very interesting. So there's so I've been reading a lot of books, as I said at the opening, 11 currently available books of historical dream literature, and this is legit. So I'm going back to literally 1528 for some of these works, and that's where you get more of the supernatural, spooky woo interpretation of dreams coming from the ancient tradition from 2,000 years ago in Greece and whatnot. But then transferring through the kind of religious understanding in the 1700s, and then into the medical and scientific understanding that still relied heavily on metaphysical or spiritual, specifically Christian understanding of things, talking about God and sin and different stuff. I was going somewhere with that. Oh, into the medical understanding. And I'm editing a work right now, which will actually be book 13 eventually, where it talks about children's dreams. And so here we are, two adults talking about adult understanding of dream experiences. Okay, long story short on that, too late for that, I know. Children at a very young age, 5-6 years old, exactly that experience you just described of waking up the next morning and really believing the dream is real, that this was an experience. Because honestly, there's something developmentally that happens with kids right around 4, 5, 6 years old. They start to understand that there is a fantasy world in their imagination, and there is a real physical world that follows its own laws. And you can't just be a puppy because you crawl around on all fours. You're actually a person pretending to be a puppy, not actually a puppy. So up until that kind of dawning of understanding there is a real external world and separating fantasy from reality, a lot of kids just tell a dream as if, well, this is an experience I had, and it happened because I experienced it. So very common that you would go to your parents and say this thing happened, and they of course they would laugh at you like, oh, you was dreaming. Yeah, it's cute.
yeah, exactly.
But the mask thing, I mean, so I'm not going through my usual process. Usually if there's a second dream, we just talk about it. But the mask thing is interesting. And this is a dream. Or I should say, you're sure you're not retconning it. This is a memory you had from a long time ago throughout your life.
Oh, yeah.
Then the mask thing happens now when it's like, whoa, I dreamed something similar.
Yeah.
And
I mean, for years, it was just always he had the little mask on. I mean, literally what people are wearing, like the N95 masks right now. I
Okay,
think
so
that's what they're
not
called.
just the little disposable like blue or yellow ones, but more of the face
It was a
cone.
white. Yeah, yeah,
Very
exactly
interesting.
what it was.
And I wonder, I mean, you and I are about the same age, and that only goes back to what the 1970s. And they probably, it's possible you saw someone wearing something similar
Yeah,
in a
of course.
hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, probably in a hospital, something like that. But I did have a minor little surgery when I was a little kid, so that's probably where I may have seen something
And I
like
was
that.
going to ask, was there anything connected to it? And it could have been,
Yeah,
was that about the same time you had that dream?
it was. It
That's
was.
very
It would have been
interesting.
close by the same time.
I mean, had you made that connection before? That it might,
Never,
no,
not
really?
until just
Oh,
now.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, that's why we do this thing.
Never.
Got it. That's the magic. I could not have done this. I have no process that brings it out. I get a blue lightning bolt from Zeus or wherever it comes from. I ask a question and someone goes, now that you mention it, yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of and not to downplay. Well, here I downplay the possibility that you literally saw the future, and then I say I'm getting messages from Zeus or whatever. Who knows the muses? But that would be interesting. And if we related it to that experience, this is where now we're kind of meta analysis of looking at my process as we talk about it. I'll be like, what? How could that be related to the idea of you having a surgery? I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was, well, it's a surgery. They went inside you and rummaged around wearing this mask, and there seemed to be some connection with this kitchen hutch china cabinet being kind of a disconnected stand-in for rummaging through your body in a way.
Maybe.
Yeah, or not. I mean, this is where I rely on people to say that's just the doorknob I rattled there, but there is something. It was someone in your home that didn't belong there. You thought it was your dad, but it wasn't. And they're rummaging through this cabinet. We would probably dive deeper into the idea of what does that cabinet represent? Did you have any other experiences with it? Your mom was always telling you to stay away from it because you're going to knock things off. Did you knock things off and you felt guilty about it? Were there family heirlooms on there? Things you personally connected with? Did they display your art as a kid on that thing? All these questions come to my mind.
I mean, nothing. I mean, there was, mom would decorate it with like pictures, and there'd be family pictures in there, and they would some of their, I'm trying to remember, but to me, I remember the guy in the dream was desperately looking for something. He was desperately trying to find something.
So there was something about his behavior. You said desperate, so he was intent upon it, almost frantic,
he was
or at
going
least determined.
He was determined. He was looking through that drawer like he was, desperately trying to find something that he was looking for. And then I showed up and I, caught him by surprise. And then, he looked down at me and just made this really angry eyes were very angry,
Gotcha.
that I had showed up. And
unexpected interruption. So you're feeling that from you've interrupted someone in their process. Someone wasn't supposed to be there. Someone who's he's on a mission. Something's very important to him, and you're in the middle of it. You're a distraction or disruption, but also, this. And it's interesting too that he wasn't rummaging through a closet. He wasn't in the parents' bedroom while they were asleep, and you woke up and saw him going through their drawers. Something about that kitchen space and that hutch, and being very determined to find something that was important to him. I won't even say it was of value necessarily. That is interesting too. Displayed family pictures on there. Did you ever get a sense of what he was looking for, or did he ever look like he found something?
No. As soon as he turned around and noticed me, he saw the anger in his eyes, and then he started to chase me, and I just ran and, ran back into my mother's bedroom, climbed into bed, and that was it.
Gotcha. So there was actually also an experience of once he noticed you, once you officially interrupted his process and your presence was some kind of a disruption. There was a chase. He actually turned his attention to you instead of just pushing you out of the way and going back to his business. He wasn't friendly about it. Yeah, there can be a lot of safety concerns with kids as well that come out in dreams of like, there's always in all of our lives, we have the first time we ever have a particular kind of thought. And sometimes at a very early age, you're like, someone could just walk into our house and they could be bad people and they might do something. And sometimes we dream about that. And we have that realization, then our mind plays it out in our sleep and we're like, this could happen. Suddenly I'm afraid of something I didn't even know existed until it came up. That could have been something related to it. I don't know. But that surgery angle is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is.
If you think about it from that perspective, anything else come to mind related to it in terms of making sense of it?
Well, I mean, I do think, I remember being a little kid, having experiencing anxiety probably for the first time about having to, have surgery as a little kid. And, and then the kind of like the fear with that dream, so the kind of connection there. But I mean, and
the doctor specifically.
Exactly. Maybe I think so, because I do remember meeting the doctors, but they weren't. Yeah, absolutely. They were
probably perfectly nice, but very intimidating, I'd imagine.
Yeah, perfectly nice, but probably your typical, I don't know. Surgeons aren't really known for their bubbly personalities. At least, I haven't.
Yeah. They spend most of their time with you while you are unconscious. No need for bedside manner. They're just sterility protocols. Which, if they have to focus on something, well, I'll take that.
I think a lot of them are probably numb to certain situations just due to the nature of their job.
Yeah, they have to be.
Yeah. Things can go wrong,
even for their own. What was I going to say? No, forget it. I was going somewhere.
Probably for their own mental safety, for their own mental health, they have to. I couldn't imagine doing their job. You know what I mean?
Me either. I couldn't cut someone.
I wouldn't want that gig.
Yeah, that's what. Even if I knew I'm doing this for them, this is going to help them. The act of causing damage to a physical person's body, I would be hard pressed to get that done in an emergency situation. Know. I'm the only one that can. Giving someone a trach because they're choking.
If I screw this,
they might die. Yeah. I mean, they're going to die anyway, so I might as well try. But man, could I bring myself to do it? I don't know if I could. So it definitely takes a certain mindset that's probably not leaning into being a people person, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, that's another. My last thought on that, I suppose, would be if there were some kind of post-surgical instructions you were aware of, anything you had to do specifically for recovery. Do you remember anything related to that? The experience of recovering from that?
I mean, I just remember, I remember the next day, whatever. I remember being in the hospital room and my parents buying me, this is how old I am. Do you remember those old, they were like water, they were games that you pushed a little button and it would shoot like a little ring.
Yes.
And it was in water.
Squirts the water, you try and make the ring land on the thing. Shoot the basketball through the hoop. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I literally had one of those, and it would, and I remember getting that. But then I also remember my cousins wanting to see the scar. Let us see your scar.
Oh yeah, and, that's something to see.
And I was like, well, it was. So I remember, that. But other than that, there's nothing, nothing terrifying. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Yeah, the idea came to my mind of having the post-surgical instructions very sternly impressed upon you in a way that would leave you in fear of disappointing the doctor in that authority figure kind of way. So it's rattling doorknobs, but that did lead to the interesting conversation of the water. I need to find one of those just for the hell of it. I wonder if my parents have one in an old box somewhere from my childhood.
That water is probably the most, funkiest, I don't know.
Be surprised that they didn't end up growing stuff. Cause I got, I got a water cooler, heat sink for my computer. And it's very common with these things that they clog up because some goo has grown in the pipes. And you're like, how does that even happen? It's a sealed thing. But, you know, not for nothing, but totally off topic. I actually took one apart once, following instructions. Love those YouTube how-to videos. And it said, flush it out real good. And then when you put water back in, do a 10% like bleach solution or something, or no, it was like isopropyl alcohol or something, but like a 10% solution, guaranteed nothing will grow in there for the rest of its life cycle.
Wow.
You got to think, why don't they just sell them that way? Just put that in there to begin with. Why would they ever gunk up?
I don't know, but it's crazy the stuff that we played compared to now. You know, I'm just like, you know, I played with water, so. Right?
So
old. We made games out of water.
You and your Game Boys and Nintendo Switchies and whatever they are. That's good stuff. Now we're all playing. Man, if you told me we'd have pocket computers with a giant screen and we'd be watching movies and no one would go to the theater anymore, I'd be like, you're nuts. Wow. Yeah, that's magical. I mean, you go back, even people talk about taking technology back to primitive times and showing, ooh, cell phone. And it would blow their mind. They wouldn't have any concept of what it was. But you take it back 40 years, people would have no concept of a world. Payphones. I think there are still some of them out there. I remember making phone calls home to let my folks know I was okay. I'm going to go over to another friend's house. How else was I supposed to? I wasn't going to bicycle all the way home. It was 10 miles away. It's a different.
Those were the good old days, man. I look at those days and I'm like, God, I miss those. We didn't know how good we had it. You know, I think
for sure.
I think there's pros and cons to like what we're doing now is super cool. Yeah, thank you, technology. We couldn't do this now if it wasn't for technology.
That's true. This wouldn't be possible 40 years ago. Not in this form.
So there's some cool stuff too out of it too. But yeah,
I think we haven't quite got a handle on how to make the most of it in the most beneficial way. That's what we're struggling with. What do we do with this now?
You know what I tell people, and I tell people, I was like, you know, technology these days, and this is everything. YouTube, all this stuff, everything. It's like searching for chocolate covered cherries in a big pile of shit. Excuse my language. I don't even know that's on here, but I mean, there's some cherries in there, bro. You just got to get in there and, you know, dig. So
for sure,
I think that's what we're facing.
It is like mining gems. That you got to dig it out of the rock, and really, it's and still you got to clean it up and polish it sometimes. And,
yeah, you got to clean it up
for sure. Well, if you feel like we had a good enough conversation, you got some answers or at least something to think about. I always try to be respectful of people's time. So.
Absolutely. Well, let me, first of all, the first dream, absolutely super. I feel like I got a lot out of that. And this right here, I had my whole life. I remember this dream and I never once connected the surgery in that. So that's super cool. Totally blew my mind, Ben. I tell you what, brother, can I blow your mind real quick?
Sure.
All right, here we go. We're going to do a magic trick.
Ooh,
all right.
This is a first for me. I love it.
All right. This is what we're going to do, man. Okay. I'm going to try to read your mind. Okay. I'm going to try to read your mind, just like how you read my dreams. I'm going to try to read your mind. Here we go. So what I'm going to do, Ben, I'm going to hold up some cards right up here to the camera. I want you to think of one of those cards. Do you got one?
I do.
Okay. Don't forget it. Make sure you got it. Do you got that inside your head? You got one of those cards?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Because Ben, if you don't forget your card either, because if you do, I look stupider. All right, all right, brother.
Shut up. Maybe I should write it down. Just for my
there
own
we
brain.
go.
There we go. Done.
Here we go. All right, I'm going to lose the cards in the deck here. I'm going to lose the cards in the deck. Give me just a second. Shovel it. All right. Now I've got a full deck here. First, let me ask you real quick, Ben. The card you're thinking of, is it a high card, a low card, or kind of in between?
In between.
Okay, in between. I'm going to give it a shot here, brother. I don't know. All right, now I've cut the deck, so I'm obligated. I'm obligated right here, okay? For the first time, I want you to name the card you're only thinking of.
Okay, 8 of diamonds.
The 8 of diamonds.
Yes.
Now, Ben, I've cut the deck, and I'm obligated, bro. I can't get out of this. I've cut to one card and one card only.
Ayo, very
the
nice.
8 of diamonds.
Very nice. That is magic. Let me tell you, I love it. And I used to watch the behind the scenes shows where they go, the magicians, this is how I don't watch those anymore. Just show me just let me be amazed. Let me experience that childlike wonder.
That's right, baby. We don't need to know everything. No, that's good right there.
Life is sometimes better when things are a mystery. You just enjoy the mystery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good deal. Well, I'm going to wrap this up by saying thank you to our guest, Danny Whitson from Knoxville, Tennessee. And he is a stand-up comedy magician, host of the Abracadam podcast. And you can find him at DannyWhitsonMagic.com. That's Whitson, WHITSON. Yeah, it's been great having you here. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, this was fun. I feel like I got a lot out of this. And brother, hey, thanks for having me on. This was a blast.
Good deal. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to do my own little housekeeping right here at the end. Hey, stop what you're doing. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteers to share their dreams with my audience. You can tell people, I hope, by example, are having fun with it. Hey, this is easy. Pressure's all on me. You just got to show up with the dream. Everybody dreams. You can support my work, get a t-shirt, coffee mug, tote bag, all that good stuff. Also, 11 currently available published works of historical dream literature. That is the housekeeping, and I'll just say thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.